Would you like to live a long, high-quality life? Maybe be around for your kids and grandkids and stay in great shape while you age? Well, today I'm going to walk through the key things that you need to know in order to make that happen. Most people who want to be fit, active and healthy in their 80s or live to be 100 don't have a plan to get there. And if that's you, then this video may be just what you need.
I don't have a plan. Baby? What? Do you have a plan? I don't even have a plan.
Today I'm going to dive into some of these specific strategies from Peter Attia's Outlive book, which has been one of the best reads on health that I have ever consumed, and put it into an actionable framework you can start using right away. Let's start with the topic that most people think is most important, and that's nutrition. However, Peter doesn't think that way, and we'll be getting into what he believes to be the number one thing with regards to living a long quality life in just a few minutes. So your nutrition strategy is going to be based on one of four things, and it's going to depend on which category you fall into. So we have overnourished and undermuscled, which means too much body fat and not enough muscle mass. The second piece is overnourished, adequately muscled, so enough muscle, but again, too high in body fat. The third quadrant here is undernourished and undermuscled, so if you don't have enough muscle or you're too lean. And the fourth here is adequately nourished and adequately muscled. You will fit into one of these four categories. So it's ultimately about figuring out which one you're in and then developing the nutrition strategy from there. Now, most people are going to fall into the overnourished and undermuscled category. That's just how it is. And our goal then is to get you to roughly 10 to 20% body fat if you're male and help you add adequate muscle mass. Now, how do we actually go about doing that from a dietary perspective? Step number one is break free from the SAD, or the standard American diet. Reducing processed foods, cutting down on refined sugars, eating more whole natural protein sources as well. These are some of the key aspects of step one. Get rid of the ultra processed, highly palatable foods. Step number two is create some form of calorie restriction through one of the dietary methods, which is going to be one, caloric restriction, which means counting your calories and macronutrients. Number two, time restriction, which again is just intermittent fasting or reducing the window that you eat in. And the third is dietary restriction.
Time to carb load.
Which may be something like removing carbs from your diet.
This is the worst.
Caloric restriction in this case is the only one where you can actually get pretty accurate with the tracking. Now you can combine two of them. You can track your calories and time restrict. So if you are thinking of dietary restriction or time restriction and you're not losing weight, then you may have to focus on counting your calories in order to create the actual deficit required to lose body fat. Step number three is getting 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, or if you are in the overweight or obese category, aim for 1 pound of your goal weight. Now, ideally, you want to get around 3 to 5 servings per day, somewhere between 20 and 40 grams to maximize muscle protein synthesis and anabolism. Step number four is getting your fats correct. Now, not all fats are created equal. We do want a balance of polyunsaturated fats, monounsaturated fats, and some saturated fats in there as well, with a focus on things like omega-3s for your heart and brain health. With regards to carbohydrates, cut down on as many refined and processed carbs as you can and just fill up the rest of your calories with them. White potatoes, white rice, brown rice, all these are absolutely fine. Now, before we go any further, none of that matters unless you can stick to it. Sustainability is the only way to win here. When we're talking about long-term health, you're going to be around a long time. You're going to have to eat the rest of your life. So finding a strategy that allows you to do most things well most of the time is fundamental to your success. Now, if you need help creating that, then feel free to book a free health assessment below at the link in the description. The second aspect of longevity is sleep. Now, if you're anything like me, you once had the "I'll sleep when I'm dead" mentality. The reality is that only brings that day one step closer. Now, this isn't the most important. I'm just about to get to the most important factor for longevity in just a second. We're about to get to the good part. Now, let's look at what longevity actually is. Longevity is prolonging life without disease. The people who die at 100 die from the same diseases as people who die in their 80s. They just essentially prolong their life without suffering the disease. And the four biggest killers are heart disease, cancer, type 2 diabetes and metabolic diseases, and cognitive diseases, things like Alzheimer's, dementia, etc. And poor sleep is going to increase your chances of every single one of them. And even workplace accidents, it's not just about not feeling tired or feeling better, it's ultimately about your long-term health as well. One statistic doesn't lie also, with 20% of car accidents coming from sleep-deprived drivers, which again is a huge killer in the modern world. Now let's get to the most potent longevity drug that we have, and that is exercise. At the top of the list, with being the most correlated factor with longevity, is your VO2 max, which is essentially a measure of your cardiorespiratory fitness. The second component of your cardiovascular health would be your zone 2. Now think about your cardiovascular health as a pyramid. Zone 2 is your base and the VO2 max is your peak. And we want to maximise the area of that pyramid as much as humanly possible. So what's the prescription to achieve that? Well, the more the better to some extent, but we have to live in the real world, of course. There's only so many hours in the day. Starting with as little as 2 30-minute sessions of zone 2 cardio per week can be a fantastic place to start, especially if you are unfit and not doing anything right now. This might simply just be going a walk. And before I move on, to clarify what zone 2 is, we use something called the talk test. While doing the cardio, would be able to talk and have a conversation, but you wouldn't want to.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Once you've built that aerobic base and stamina up, then you can add in sort of a VO2 max training session. Now we like to use the 4x4x4 method, 4 minutes at all out effort followed by 4 minutes of recovery, repeated 4 times. This is about a 35-minute workout with a 3 to 5 minute warm-up, and this is an incredibly efficient way to improve your VO2 max over time. Now, second only to VO2 max is your strength and muscle mass. Now, to put this into perspective, smoking has a hazard ratio of 1.4, which means you have a 40% increased risk of dying at any time compared to a non-smoker. Having a low VO2 max compared to someone in the elite range for their age, which would be the top 2.5%, results in a 5 hazard ratio. 500% difference in low VO2 max to elite levels. So you can see this is probably the number one thing with longevity, and the muscle mass and strength information comes in at 3.5, 250% more. So again, a huge increase. So for strength training, we have to build this into the program, and it has to be a key part of the process. Do what you can. If you can only do two days, I would recommend doing 2 full body workouts, 4 to 6 exercises per session, 3 to 5 sets per exercise, focusing on compound lifts. If you're training 3, I would keep it at 3 full body sessions with the same instruction. 4 days per week, maybe an upper lower would be a better fit, but again with the same instruction on the exercises there as well. If you want a free plan that goes along with this, just comment the word plan below and I'll reach out and drop you across. Now the final piece of the puzzle here is emotional health. Peter had his own challenges with perfectionism, workaholism, and almost lost his family because of them.
This other piece of emotional health, it's potentially the most important of them all. It's also the hardest to define, but without it, none of this other stuff matters, right?
He said himself he was focusing all of his time on living longer, but was actually miserable in the process. So what's the point? This could be the most important factor when it comes to actually living a long, high quality life. Spending time with your family, with your friends, trying to avoid loneliness, get yourself into social circles. These are all going to play a huge part on your ability to live a long life, but also a quality life. Now, if you want to test out your own fitness level, off to the side is going to be the test that I personally done using Peter's methods. Go and put yourself through the test.